Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
మా కార్యక్రమాలు అందజేస్తున్నాయి అనేక భాషలలో. దయచేసి చూడండి suprememastertv.com/schedule.
I view religions as in stages, as kind of going through different stages. You know, religions of the East and in the West. They may have been started by a master originally, but, you know, over many generations, you know, you get a different leadership that takes over. So there's a kind of shift in consciousness away from those spiritual ideals. And so the history of spirituality on planet Earth is that of forgetting and remembering again.
Supreme Master Ching Hai has made contributions over the years totaling $25,000 to lovingly support the work of Mr. James Bean and Spiritual Awakening Radio.
Please continue watching to find out more.
Sieni, ingenious viewers, I am Leonora. Sieni is how are you in Albanian, one of the official languages of Kosovo. The creative people of Kosovo join hands with you to create environmentally friendly solutions for all beings and our Earth home. In the previous episode, we gained some insight into Mr. James Bean's noble endeavors over the last several decades in sharing the wisdom of ancient and rare spiritual teachings. Today, we will continue to explore further avenues of spiritual truth. Mr. James Bean of Maine, USA, launched Spiritual Awakening Radio in September 1988 out of his pure love of the great masters and their teachings. The focus of Mr. Bean's programs is to share, through radio and other media, a deeper understanding of spirituality for a more peaceful planet. He is also a mystic explorer of the inner heavenly light and sound of God, and a devotee of the spiritual path from India, known as Sant Mat.
I was initiated by a master by the name of Swami Sant Sevi Ji back in the early 2000s, who I consider to be my primary, initiating master. And this was after being absolutely blown away by his teachings. He's passed on now, but he's from the Maharshi Mehi branch of the Sants. And that is a very obscure path. And there's only like about 5 people in the United States that follow this particular branch of Sant. So in terms of what I do for radio, for podcasts, for a kind of online and radio mission, I'm doing so without too much support from a group.
A brave hero strives only for the noble cause, even when initial support is minimal. But God is never short of hands. When we truly serve the world, God finds ways to help.
Supreme Master Ching Hai has contributed several times to further the good cause of Mr. James Bean and Spiritual Awakening Radio. In 2009, she offered $5,000 along with some of her books, DVDs, and CDs. In 2018, she also provided the English book series, The Key of Immediate Enlightenment, volumes 1 to 5, along with other DVDs. Most recently, in 2019, Supreme Master Ching Hai gave $20,000 to Mr. James Bean and Spiritual Awakening Radio to lovingly support his veg promotion.
Supreme Master Ching Hai is deeply grateful to the beloved God for all the financial help, comfort, and support to the afflicted and needy, and or any good cause over the years, as a humble vessel for Here's compassion and love toward Here's precious children.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been part of a path that only has like a few people in the United States. So I'm kind of on my own, untethered, without a net, kind of living from week to week, month to month. And so I've really appreciated very deeply the support from Supreme Master Ching Hai. It's allowed me to continue to exist, doing what I do. I don't think I would have been able to continue without that support, and so I have, made a deal with a podcast distribution company to share podcasts in all of the venues, the Google Play, the Apple Podcasts, also known as iTunes, and all of those venues, and that would not have happened, without that support. So I just exist, because of the goodwill, and grace that has been directed in my direction to allow me to do this very unusual kind of radio and carry on, to continue doing it, week after week, month after month, year after year. And I really feel that to be my calling, even though it hasn't always been easy. And there's nowhere to go except forward, I have no plans to do anything except more of this, and to do it better, and to reach more people, through whatever they invent for technology. Now it's podcasting. I'm moving into the podcast world, as well as, of course, YouTube.
Mr. James Bean had the honor of interviewing Supreme Master Ching Hai over the radio on July 29, 2008. During their conversation, Supreme Master Ching Hai highly commended Mr. Bean's knowledge and deep understanding of ancient holy texts such as the Surangama Sutra.
On the inner sound, one of my favorite Buddhist texts is the Surangama Sutra, which I believe it's a Sanskrit spelling, but it means Quan Yin in the Chinese, I believe.
Right.
It's all about gaining enlightenment through transcendental hearing. That's an amazing book, wherever it came from. It's an ancient text.
Yeah. That's from India, where the Buddha was alive. He talked about it, and his disciple recorded it. And that's now we have it. Many of them, and especially this one, always mention about the South Current that we, the human being, rely on to go back to the original abode. And the Bodhisattva and the Buddha rely on that to come down to our world to bless and rescue sentient beings. Wow, you are very well read, Mr. Bean, and you are so vastly knowledgeable. I'm impressed. Even many Buddhists don't know this sutra exists, don't know this scripture. You're so good.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare text, and it also talks about vegetarian diet, and so it's a very interesting book.
Oh, it says everything in there.
That's my favorite Buddhist sutra.
Yes, yes. That's a very deep one that you read. I'm impressed. Are you Buddhist, or are you just study all kind to compare?
Oh, everything to do with sound and light and world scriptures. It's my focus, and that one is just a very, very deep book.
It's time to pause and contemplate our privilege as human beings. We'll be right back after a constructive message. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back, loving viewers. Mr. James Bean will now explain how the original teachings from great enlightened masters become obscured and forgotten, as well as how to remember so that we return to our noble origin.
I view religions as in stages, as kind of going through different stages. religions of the East and in the West. They may have been started by a master originally, and you get that pure teaching at the very beginning, the Gospel of Thomas in the case of Christianity, and the Sermon on the Mount. That's the real Jesus. But, over many generations, you get a different leadership that takes over, and there are no more masters, no more mystics, no more saints. So there's a kind of shift in consciousness away from those spiritual ideals. And so the history of spirituality on planet Earth is that of forgetting and remembering again. People lose touch with those ideals, and people speak of the Buddha eating meat, and yet we've read some beautiful sutras advocating vegetarianism, and indeed the Surangama Sutra of the Buddha is a vegan text. So these things get misplaced, and the world and the old diet of the Roman Empire and other empires of the East and West creep back in, and the teachings of saints get covered over in dust, and lost. I collect writings that were literally lost, found in Egypt, and those are vegetarian or vegan as well. The Gnostic Gospels, they were gone for 1,700 years. They were missing, and a copy turned up, and actually different discoveries have been made in Egypt of some of those old writings. And that's where I got some of my veg passages from, when I compiled this booklet on the vegetarianism or veganism of Christianity. So these things get lost when there's no master around anymore, and the initiates of that master all get old and pass on, and knowledge gets lost, and then it's up to some other master someplace else to emerge and pick up, keep the light on in this world.
Enlightened masters from time immemorial have all mentioned a method of spiritual practice known as the inner heavenly light and sound. It is a universal practice that the great masters say is the sure way to remember and return to our original abode.
In the past, it was mostly mystic poetry. It would seem like psalms to us in English, to read English translations, but in India there's song, and there are vast amounts of writings composed by masters of the past that refer to inner light and sound that have been mainly in India, but there's also some material from Tibet and China too. Of course, the Surangama Sutra of Buddhism is a light and sound kind of Buddhist scripture that also is one of the earliest scriptures in the history of humanity to advocate the vegan diet. So that's an amazing text. Light and sound are there, not easy to find, but there's a whole galaxy of saints of the ages, and I've gotten to know them well, over the decades. I think the meditation practice advocated by all of the masters, living or recent or past or ancient, it's an amazing thing when you think about inner light and sound meditation and receiving that knowledge of how to do that meditation practice. We're just joining in with souls of past generations, that have encountered that same light and sound, and that's really special. That's so amazing. It's kind of a secret thing that's been around for eons and eons. Thousands of years, human beings have been experiencing, the inner light and sound. A certain percentage of the population in each generation has been interested in this kind of path. I have traced it all the way back, thousands of years. It's a very old path, There are some rishis who wrote Upanishads that sound a lot like masters, that speak of the inner light and the sound, the nada. the Nada Yoga, or Shabd Yoga. And it's just a very old path. Not only in India, it's basically, India, China, Tibet, that region, but also in the West. Pythagoras, I would say, is probably the earliest sage that might have been a master, who talked about hearing the music of the spheres and believed in reincarnation, actually, and seemed to be not only a mathematician, as he's known for, but also a mystic. And so it's very old. There are Jewish texts, Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, Dead Sea Scrolls, so very beautiful poetry, from ancient scrolls of the West, also about light and sound and the ascensions of the soul through these different planes or heavens of consciousness, and seeing and hearing certain things along the way, different kinds of music, inner music, heavenly music. So it's been around for a very long time, and I've tried to research it not only from the point of view of a spiritual practitioner, but also as a historian, just to see where this path has come from. It's a very old path. It's a very special thing. It's a rare thing, a great blessing to have even heard of this kind of meditation. Just to know that it exists is some kind of karmic blessing or destiny, a great blessing.
Through the method of inner heavenly light and sound meditation, as bestowed by the grace of a master, we can find balance in every aspect of everyday life and spiritual practice during our earthly sojourn. For more information and quotes from masters, please log on to spiritualawakeningradio.com or email james@spiritualawakeningradio.com. Wondrous viewers, it's been a pleasure to have you with us today. Please join us again tomorrow for tuning in to the higher frequency of spiritual wisdom. An interview with Mr. James Bean, Vegan, Part 3 of 5, here on Supreme Master Television. Coming up next is traditional musical instrument, the delightful European recorder, right after noteworthy news. May we be led through the teachings of great masters to reach the realm of heavenly light.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.